Let me share my screen. So is my screen visible?
Yep.
Okay, let's go through the agenda. So please feel free to add your names to the meeting notes. And if there are any new attendees who are attending the community meeting for the first time, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Lila Yassin. I hold a master's degree in library and information science and spent the past 9 years working for an e-commerce company, in which capacity I was the customer loyalty manager and was also IT and e-com liaison. And that experience led me to become a software developer. So I just graduated from Momentum Learn and am eagerly joining the software community.
Hi, Laila. Welcome to the community meeting. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone else? If not, we can move to the next topic, which is community interests. So active chairs for operator framework.
That's my thing, although I've been talking with Austin about it a lot. So basically, the past couple of weeks that I've been trying to get together, especially with people from OLM, to figure out what we want to do for the maintainer track session. It was very difficult because there weren't really very clear lines of communication from our end to their end, and there wasn't really anybody I could appeal to because I don't work for Red Hat. And we were taking a look at the governance doc, Austin and I, after this experience, and we realized that there's supposed to be this list of people who are chairs who are nominally supposed to be stewarding things, except with the exception of maybe Joe, it seems like these people are not very active in the community, and perhaps some of them have even moved on entirely. Also, Austin, I believe, was fairly confident that I don't think this list of people, I don't think they've ever actually met, at any kind of organized meeting of any kind since Operator Framework got turned into a CNCF project. So we were wondering if it might be possible to reach out to these people and see if they're interested in taking a more active role in things. And if not, could we maybe roll some people onto this list who are more active in the community? We asked Joe to be here today because he's like the one person on the list who is, definitely still around and doing stuff, but it looks like he couldn't make it. Oh no, he's here.
No, I'm here. I think everything you said is true, and I think I agree that. So if you go back up to that list, I think Daniel Messer is also active. He's a Red Hat product manager, but he's definitely still in the thick of things with Operator Framework, and he would probably want to stay on. But I agree that we haven't had any meetings of the chairs, and we probably need to be a little bit more cognizant of all of the upstream governance that we put in place to get approved as a CNCF project. So everything you're saying, I think, makes total sense. I guess like some of these names, like Sean Hurley, he used to be in the role that I am now, which is kind of the technical lead for kind of the entire Operator Framework. He has since moved on. He would probably say that, he's not going to become more involved anytime soon. We should replace him with a new chair. Same with Evan. Evan left Red Hat. He has been a little bit involved still on the OLM side, but very minimally. I don't know what, I'm guessing he wouldn't be able to commit to having a chair role either, but I could be wrong. I wonder, does our governance say anything about like responsibilities and requirements for chairs? Do they have to be active in some way? And what's the
They are required to be active.
That makes sense. That's good. I'm just wondering what the best way of kind of refreshing the chair list is. Probably is laid out here.
The last bullet in that list is that it's a 1-year revolving term, and that we are supposed to have an election if we have a challenge, and I don't know if we need to like challenge since I think we just need to call an election.
Agreed.
The second bullet also says the chairs have the authority to declare a member inactive, but with this many people inactive, I don't.
Does that mean I have sole authority? I'm the dictator here now. No, so I agree. I think an election probably makes sense. Does it say that? I'm sure there's something in here that, see, this tells you how much I don't even know about this, right? Like, I don't even know what the election method is. Like, I'm sure there's something we need to send out on the mailing list, and people have to nominate, blah 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 blah, right?
Yep.
Isn't that what if you click on conjoice?
Oh, this is Wikipedia page.
I think it's basically ranked choice.
Okay, and I think that's similar to how the Kubernetes election method works. Okay, I mean, I think that's all good. So I don't know if, like, am I supposed to be the one that implements all of that as a chair? I'm totally happy to delegate that if someone would like to bring that to its conclusion, but I'm up for kind of whatever. It seems like at the very least
we do that. I'm going to be out for about 2 weeks, so I don't want to be the reason this gets held up. But I do
happy to coordinate on running whatever.
So Joe, I think as one of the current chairs, the best thing to do would be for you to reach out to all of the existing chairs to start with. And after you've done that, we send something to the mailing list saying that we're going to do an election. Maybe we even have another community meeting where we decide how that's all going to run before we kick it off. And perhaps we could even include that in our governance document. But I don't really want to go through the process of changing the governance document until we have a full set of chairs.
Yeah, we definitely need quorum to change any of that anyway. So yeah, I think I guess maybe what we should do is have, if someone wants to volunteer to basically read through our governance docs and have like a TLDR for like what the steps of conducting the election are going to be. And then we can, Austin, like you said, maybe we have that follow on just to get whoever the interested parties are back in the room, and all of us can say like, okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then we can go do it.
I can do that. This is Jonathan. Hold on. Sorry about that. I can take a look into what exactly running an election means. We'd still appreciate, Joe, if you reached out to the other chairs and asked them what's what.
Yep. I'm guessing they'll say no clue, do what you need to do, but I will.
Okay. Does this sound good? Joe reaches out to the current chairs, and Jonathan, you can tell us about the election process, and then we can finally discuss in a community meeting on whether we need a new set of rules and how to conduct the election.
Okay.
Oh, I do have one small hang up, which is that this is the operator SDK community meeting. We do need to bring this up to the operator framework. I don't think we have a good venue for that as like a meeting, but as long as that should go to the OLM folks too.
So OLM has a community meeting as well, so we can have the same discussion at that meeting.
That sounds great.
Okay.
I don't know, Jonathan, if you want to help with that, or if you want me to try to run it on the OLM side, or you know.
I can show up when, and I don't think I have that on my calendar.
It's every other Thursday. Let me see. I can forward you an invite.
Is the information in operator framework community accurate?
It should be.
Is 10 a.m. Eastern?
That sounds right.
Under
Let me look in.
issue triage. What is the regular working group?
Let's see. I see. Okay, I see an operator framework OM working group, 3 p.m. Eastern time this Thursday.
Okay, I'll be there.
I'll forward it to you.
Okay.
Cool. So these are the 4 things to be done. Is there anything else we would like to talk about this and add this to the action item? Add anything else to the action item? Are we good?
The next thing sort of also ties into that, which is that in addition to not having like any sort of publicly accessible leadership to smooth things out, it's also come to my attention that it seems like a lot of the feature work that gets done doesn't get planned or executed in a very like publicly visible manner. And I'd like for that to change. Like when we were discussing like what do we want to talk about in the maintainer track session, like, you know, like I didn't even know a hybrid helm existed, for instance, because like I haven't been looking at those PRs. Nobody told me that that was a feature that was going in, so I didn't know it existed. And I do know that there are, you know, Red Hat PMs who are nominally planning this stuff, and apparently there's a Jira board somewhere in the ether that I can't look at because I'm not a Red Hatter. And I was wondering if we could just like move a lot of this process and stuff to places where I can see it, like doing this stuff in public meetings and hosting it on GitHub instead of in some private Jira. Mostly because this is because I want to help work on this stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree that we should make all that stuff publicly visible. So my understanding is that Red Hat is trying to open up its Jira. So like that, I think is avenue number 1 for like, how can we do something as quickly as possible and see if we can get the operator SDK and OLM Jiras opened up either at all or more than they already are. I feel like we've had the same conversation on the OLM side, and like I know some IBMers have been able to see our OLM Jira, so maybe it's just a matter of connecting the right dots for the SDK side as well. However, like even barring that, I would like to see like more upstream kind of GitHub stuff going on to make it even more open, because maybe that's just my bias showing through, but Jira to me is at least not the most approachable. Yeah, I think the problem though is like there's always going to be like this problem where you know, which one is the source of truth? Are Red Hat developers then being asked to you know, ferry things back and forth, like because internally Red Hat, like, you know, we've got to use Jira for our internal processes. So I think from an upstream perspective, you know, how can we make it both open but also not incredibly burdensome?
So
I think that's the.
If we do make the Jira boards public, I don't think that's going to help terribly much, because the Jira boards are in the language of OpenShift, and it's designed to be consumed by Red Hatters. But I think we do have pretty decent precedent here with queue builder and controller runtime. Like basically, we have our epics in Jira, but like the first story of the epic is to file an upstream issue. And we work with the upstream issues in upstream, and we manage Red Hat time in Jira. So I think this is really a conversation that the Red Hatters need to have on how to stop doing this, how to use our existing process for Red Hat and make it fit with the existing process for upstream. But I don't like even if we do make it open, right? Like it doesn't make sense that we have feature requests coming from some people in the repo and other people in Jira. It just makes it really hard to understand what's going on.
I think I look at it a little bit differently, which is that like we as an upstream community should define how we receive feature requests upstream, and we drive it from that direction, and then that then has ramifications on any enterprises, Red Hat included, that like want things to be an operator SDK, because that, and if there's maintainers on both Red Hat side and the SDK side, then like, okay, that means there's a little more work for those maintainers to, you know, move those features around. But I don't think there's any chance that we'll be able to get an entire enterprise to say like, okay, yeah, we won't do anything in Jira anymore. We'll do it all upstream for your project. And then to ask, and then, you know, that's assuming that Red Hat is the only project that has maintainers on it. If we're a really successful CNCF project, then IBM and, you know, VMware and whoever else are also going to want to join. We probably can't control their internal processes either. So I think like with the upstream hats, like let's just define what our upstream feature requirement process is, and then that's what we do. And then we go and tell you know, our Red Hat colleagues, like here's how it works, and maybe that means that it's on us to, you know, move those features back and forth. Like if other Red Hatters are creating Jira feature requests, and that's the process that they've been told to follow, maybe it falls to us then to translate those upstream, and then put something in that downstream issue that says, hey, here's where we're tracking this work upstream, right? So that's what I mean by like trying to strike a balance on the burden side, because I think there is an additional burden.
I agree, and I especially think that standardizing this process now, if and when we ever do get more contributors from other companies, like it's going to be so much easier if we just do it now. Just have some standard process that everybody goes in through the front end, and we have some standard process for requesting new features and planning new features and implementing those features.
I think the process for upstream we have it, right? I think the problem was, Jonathan, that you saw things, new things that you didn't find in the issues. But probably we have a proposal, an instrument proposal for that, or also we could try, maybe just an idea, do nice demos about a few things, like why we cannot demonstrate new features from SDK side in this meeting, for example, sometime to share, like.
So that, I think that's a step in the right direction, but I think we don't really want to share from Red Hat to the community. I think we want it to be community first by default.
That would be ideal.
Well, I think the difference is like there are like SDK gets a bunch of feature requests that say, hey, can I do this thing? And actually what they're asking for is for something in controller runtime to change. Sometimes we say like, yeah, that sounds good. And then we go and do the legwork of getting it into controller runtime. And other times we say, okay, yeah, like actually what you're asking for is this controller runtime feature. Can you refile the feature request there? And I think that's kind of a case by case basis, depending on like what the feature request is and how much integration, you know, there needs to be between the upstream and the downstream. Like for example, a change to a cube builder template. First, that requires something in upstream to change because we need to go and change the cube builder template. But then there's also work for the SDK team to do because we have to incorporate that new cube builder version into and vendor that into the operator SDK. So in my mind, like it's perfectly reasonable for, in that case, like for us to say, yep, okay, that makes sense. Like we'll go work on this. Here's the upstream issue, but we're going to probably leave the downstream, let the SDK issue open while we go do that and update it and say like, okay, well, yeah, we got it merged upstream in this commit, and now we're like, here's the PR that's going to bump the version of KubeBuilder that we depend on, and like it's all tracked still downstream as well. So like it's kind of tracked in both places. So I imagine like a lot of what we're going to get in our internal Jira from what the OpenShift business wants is potentially going to look like that, but maybe not. Like you know, maybe there'll just be things that people ask for that we can say, oh, go, please refile question here.
Is there a gap in the community upstream process in which we create features, like creating feature just in Jira and then not bringing it on to the GitHub, which I'm not sure which we are doing? Or is there a gap in how we are publicizing the new features which we are bringing in? For example, hybrid R Java was something which was not frequently talked about in SDK meetings because we don't have many issues related to that in SDK meetings itself. So folks who are attending SDK meetings may not know about the Java and hybrid operators. So is there a gap which we need to fill in that aspect, or is there a major change in the process which we need to make?
Well, like Joe said, I don't think it's a gap, because I don't think we need to like backfill some special thing based on the internal Jira issues. I think what we need to do as the open source community is change our process such that these Red Hat issues are going through the normal process and are therefore visible to everyone. Does that make sense?
So I have a suggestion here. I think the simplest change that we could make is make it operator SDK policy that any change that is not trivial, pull request, needs to be associated with an issue.
Okay, may I think right now, excuse me, I think right now, in the case that we so what do you call it? We do these pull requests with the significant change, we almost always have an accompanying enhancement proposal. I think by including the enhancement repo and going over, like if you open a PR and an enhancement, you have to present it at the community meeting. I think just like forcing that discussion to happen with that repo, which we don't ever talk about in these meetings. Like I don't think we've once mentioned the enhancements in the last like year of these calls. I think that would probably go a long way, honestly, because there's stuff that's going out onto GitHub that like nobody's really looking at other than people internally who know that, oh, the enhancement proposal's out, let me go read it or whatever, right? We're not making like a conscious effort in the community to like have folks even not even just review enhancement PRs, but just hear about them. And even, once they merge, like, okay, cool, this is now going to be a feature. And here's a recorded little spiel about it that we have for the community.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
If we are going to use the enhancements, I have some issues. I don't have a problem with using the enhancements repo generally, but so first of all, the enhancements repo is in a separate repository. So if a new user is coming in and they're subscribing to our repo, they're not going to see this. They're not going to know about it unless we like make it more obvious. I don't think that we have anything written down about EPs in general. Like, I think that they just require 2 LGTMs from approvers, and then it's in, and it doesn't even require the community to be participating at all.
Yeah,
I think that's not, I think there's like supposed to be, maybe this isn't for enhancement proposals, but I feel like there's something in the governance that says like, you have 14 days or 21 days to dissent. And if, lack of dissent is consent. It could be, I was just going to say, I could be mixing in my details for what that applies to, but I recall that being something in there about that.
I was going to say, I imagine it would also be a lot more visible if we ever talked about it at all. It's a complicated software project. I don't think it's a reasonable expectation to keep everything located centrally in a single repository. Cough, cough, Kubernetes. But if we talked about it once a week, oh, hey, there's this new proposal, what do people think about that? Like, I think, it would be a lot more easy to know it existed.
Yeah, I think adding it to triage, like just, hey, let's just check the EP repo for PRs once a week during triage or once every 2 weeks, whatever. Like, I think that'd be great.
I'd also like a requirement that EPs be mentioned on the operator framework mailing list so that you don't necessarily have to go to every single triage to make sure that something crazy is not happening.
Oh yeah, totally. If you like open a PR towards the EP, you should just like send a note to the mailing list. Like, hey, we opened this proposal. Take a look if you're interested. Here's the subject matter.
That almost makes me wonder if we could do some integration with the mailing list on the EP repo where it sends emails to the mailing list on it, like in a chain. So it's like when you open a PR, that's a brand new subject. And then when updates and comments are made, like that's just more comments on that same subject. That would be awesome, but I don't know how easy that would be to do.
It's like a
Could
really good way to get.
framework. Could we make a Google or a GitHub account using the operator framework mailing list as the email?
Yeah, that seems like what you'd have to do.
Are you saying for the proposals repository or for the operator framework repository?
For the
For the operator framework / enhancements repo.
Okay, yeah.
I really like this idea because then we can get more feedback from people, from all projects, you know.
Oh God, what if we want to make it work in the other way too, where when somebody responds to the email chain, it posts a comment?
I think GitHub already has that integration.
Is it really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can reply to those emails.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, you're telling me I've been clicking the link to write replies this whole time for no reason? I could have just been doing it.
You're such a sucker.
This is incredible.
The
And
question
you
is, can you go back and edit those comments after you've sent the email in the GitHub UI? Because I submit something as a comment and then immediately edit it all the time.
Presumably it's tied to your account, right? Like whatever the email address is. So if you're signed in with that email.
Probably, yeah, you're probably right.
But then I don't think any change in the enhancement. We should send an email. Otherwise, we will start to send too much spam. Like imagine like 30 comments, like 30 emails sent to me. I think we need just to send when it's a new pull request.
As long, I wonder, yeah, I was thinking as long as it's in the same chain, then it wouldn't matter. But maybe you're right. Like maybe even multiple emails in the same chain would start to get annoying.
What I would like to see is one email when it's a new one email when it's getting close to merge with a deadline for when we plan to merge it, like a deadline for feedback, basically. And then a third one when it merges.
That sounds more manual than unless you want to write a bot.
Yeah, I think we can automate it for the new PR and when that gets merged, that is possible.
I think we might be getting a little too in the weeds on the mechanics of like the email notification.
Well, there's one other thing that I want to talk about some point regarding these EPs, but it doesn't need to be now. But I think we do need to have our voting guidelines for the EPs discussed and possibly part of the governance model, because as it is, it requires two LGTMs, and so you can basically merge an EP if you have a friend.
Is an LGTM your own thing?
I don't think it's
two friends.
yourself. I think it's two other people.
Yeah.
Is the enhancements repo controlled by Tide?
I don't think anything we have is controlled by Tide.
The operator lib is. I don't think enhancement is. We need to manually click on the merge button.
Okay, and then that means that only people that have write access to that repo can actually merge, but technically then they can merge, regardless of labels on the, approval labels on the EP. So it's really more of a honesty thing, which I don't think anybody has abused. So I'm not sure that's a problem, but
like historically we haven't had bad actors. I don't know if we need to like preemptively police the potential of bad actors.
I don't think we do, in my
I'm
opinion.
not so much worried about bad actors, but what I'm hoping for by getting more votes is that we're getting more, we're giving ourselves an incentive to have to bring it up to the community and have to get feedback from like a larger group.
I don't know, but because sometimes a new proposal is not like something that a lot of people from the community wish, but something that is required in the long term. I think maybe just we have a bot like it's required somebody give you okay and the approval label, that is fine. Like two people.
So I think in my mind, really like there's nothing like I think our process is all like pretty good except for making it like announcing things, right? Like it's just the visibility of things that we're working on that's lacking. Otherwise, like I think everything is probably fine. Like the speed at which things get merged, like that we're an active project. If you're not paying attention, you might miss things. It's just a matter of we need to put it out there such that for people that are watching, they at least have the chance. So in my mind, like I think we should probably focus our initial efforts on how do we get more word out in the right venues such that non-Red Hatters can be just as active as Red Hatters.
That sounds great to me. I'm going to nitpick your word choice though. I think that we need to, as a Red Hat team, not be announcing stuff. We need to be proposing stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, practically, it's like a bunch of Red Hat and a little bit IBM, right? Like, and there's definitely a few other contributors, but like at any given point in time, there's enough Red Hat maintainerships that Red Hat effectively has control to announce, right? So that's not how we want to actually go about things. Like we want to be good stewards, but at the end of the day, because Red Hat is like the predominant maintainership of the project from a practical standpoint, Red Hat can merge things if it wants to merge things. Unless, although I think we should go back and look at the EP at the governance model, there are probably like veto powers that certain people have. So like if there are non-Red Hatters in those roles, then by all means, then we'd follow those rules. Although I think it's probably fair to say that we haven't done a good job of understanding what our own governance model is, and until Jonathan started asking, like no one's really cared, and I think it's important that we do care. So like it's important for us to understand what rules we need to follow are. So I'm not saying we should go do that, but just looking at what the rules are, I think Red Hat has obviously a lot of power just because we're the predominant company behind this project.
So in the end, I think we do need to tie enhancement proposals into the governance model, but currently there's no mention of them at all. So the EP process is just more like based on precedent. But that being said, I don't think we need to adjust that yet. I think we need to get our quorum of active chairs first, and then we can start to approach changing the governance.
Question, new folks put create an email for operator frame enhancements. Could you not use the operator frame group email if you will just send like when a new PR be pushed against that repo?
I didn't follow all of that, Camilla. Did you just say like ping the Google group on the PR?
Okay, more or less. We have the email group already, right? So why do we need another email like venue? Why we cannot use that one and just
Oh,
like
I want to
send.
use that one.
Okay, just because the last sheet item is creating email for blah 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 blah.
I think we were talking about doing automation from the enhancements repo to that mailing list.
I think
Okay.
what we should probably do is, before trying to do any of that automation, let's like identify a champion for what we want to do, write down what we want to do, put that, like, make a PR to the governance repo that says, here's how we're going to do EPs from now on. And then we can vote on that, whoever, whoever's allowed to vote. I can't remember exactly how that works, but then we can go and have the governance model support what we're trying to do, such that when we ask someone to say, like, hey, like, we're going to automate this, or hey, you forgot to send an email out to the mailing list, we have something that says that here's what we're supposed to do. So in my mind, like, step one is like, let's get the chairs back in order. Step two is let's update the governance model to cover how we want future proposals to work. And then we can actually implement what we say we're going to do in the governance model.
Well,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I want to get out of this.
Yeah, I think in the end we could have we have 3 action items. One is regarding the cleaning up of the current chairs which we have here, and the other 3 would be related to adding the EP to the EP process after we decide on how it's going to go. The contributing guide or send it out in the mailing list, but we can have someone working on the automation process, if that sounds fine, parallelly, to check out how we can automate the process of announcing the EPs and all. Any inputs? Or any takers who would like to do this process parallelly?
I think for manual, we should just have the EP author do it for now.
Yeah, I agree.
But we need the okay from the chef, right? Indeed, because that change will be a rule for the operator framework itself and not only for SDK.
I don't think that has to be
Vision.
in the governance. Like, the worst case scenario is the EP author doesn't send an email out and someone else notices who thinks we should be doing that and sends the email out on their behalf. So I don't think it's a must that we get that into the governance. I think we should try, right? But like, I think the first step is like, let's just start trying to do it ourselves anyway and make that a convention. Maybe we update the template of the EP to add a note that says you should send the send the email out. So I think we can do like little incremental things that help with this. I do still think like there's the larger problem of like not every feature goes into an EP. There's lots and lots and lots of things that are pull request merge, without having issues, without having EPs. And in many cases, that's reasonable because it's a change to how CI works, or docs improvement, or a non-feature change. So I don't know if we need to somehow like apply labels and then have some enforcement on labels that say like, oh, this is a feature label, so therefore, we need to do something different. Like, oh, therefore we need an issue for this.
We could add automation that fails CI if the commit doesn't reference an issue. And we could ignore that if it's trivial.
Yeah, I just wonder like how much, like if that's going to end up becoming noise because we don't really get it quite right. I almost wonder like if, I don't know. That's a tougher problem to solve. I think it is an easy problem to solve. Let's announce EPs. So maybe we should start with like those the chairs and the EPs, and then basically have another month or two goes by and we see how that's working. And then if that's still not, up to what we think is reasonable, then we can look at what we want to do as the next step after that.
Yeah, ideally, you're reducing the amount of friction for new folks to come in and start, trying to add, submit their features and what have you. If there's too many hoops, they're going to forget one or two and get frustrated.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Going back to the point about visibility, I mean, there is something to be said about having something in place that allows you to quickly identify, like, what are the features that are coming in for operator SDK versus the operator registry project, or so, whatever. There's a bunch of different projects, and being able to identify PRs to the EPs that, so someone can quickly identify them and say, I'm interested in operator SDK, and be able to, filter them down, because right now there's a whole bunch of issues out there in the or pull requests in the enhancement proposal repo, and trying to wade through all of that to figure out which ones are the ones that I'm going to care about is a little difficult. So it might be helpful to actually put labels on the actual PRs, so that way you can filter them down to get to that. And then also, there's also the visibility part about once something's been accepted as a feature, it would be nice to be able to have some way to be able to indicate with all the enhancement proposals that have been put into that repo, which ones belong to which particular projects, because it's kind of hard to tell. There's no organization of it.
Yeah, and I think partially that's like GitHub's features just don't quite map to make that easy. Although there is the new, they're calling it the issues beta, but I think it's basically like this project management kind of thing that I'd be super interested in trying to use, right? Because then you can say here's a whole set of work. Here's all the issues that relate to that set of work. Here's the state of those issues in terms of a swim lane kind of thing. So in my mind, that's probably the best way of highlighting the various features that are being worked on, especially because then it becomes a little bit more, I think it becomes a little more seamless, because you can say okay, well, here's a PR that it's a one-off thing. It's not really a major feature. It does a little thing here and there. Maybe that doesn't really require a whole organization of stuff around it. Whereas, oh, there's this big enhancement coming. There's a bunch of issues that we need to implement. There's a whole design, and we need to, get consensus on it. So in that case, maybe what I could see is rather than, maybe we still send an email out, but with an EP that also then basically implies that there's going to be a GitHub project associated with that EP that tracks its work to implementation. And then if you're interested in that work, then you can go look at the project, and then from the project, you can see all of the issues and PRs associated with it. The only thing is, I don't know if that's
available. We don't use projects at the moment, but I think that's fine. If we wanted to use what we're already using, we could just have an issue for those same things. We are already using milestones with the triage, and I think that creates a nice little link. Hey, for 118, these are the bugs that we fixed. Now we could also have our features in there as well.
I think that would be nice. We've got, the public planning meetings already in place for that. We've got some nice process, at least that, in my opinion, is, publicly visible.
So the only complaint I have about using issues is that in many cases, there are enough sub issues that building a meta issue gets a little wonky and makes it hard to really track what's what, right? Different developers are going to have different formatting techniques. Some are going to use checkboxes and keep updating the description. Others are just going to keep adding comments at the end. And it's going to get hard to track, what am I even looking at here? I'm not opposed, we've done that before and it's been somewhat successful, but I could see how it might be easier to track if you had an actual UI and workflow around projects. So
can you put project on a milestone?
I believe that's a good question. I don't know. At the very least, you could put which stories were going to make it into that milestone from that project. And again, I think this is still GitHub beta, so maybe it's not all there, it doesn't work exactly the way that we would want it to, but I only bring it up because it's another thing to look into, really. I'm not saying we have to do it or should do it, but just as like another alternative for how to make it easier for developers to track work upstream, even if it aligns to other downstream initiatives, right? Like, what's the way to decrease the overhead for doing stuff upstream, right? At the end of the day, if like we have an overly burdensome upstream process for people that are working in, upstream and downstream, it's just never going to gain traction, and people are going to fight it and not really want to do it. So that the better we can make the upstream experience, the more likely it is to catch on, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, I guess the goal is to make the most transparent upstream that we can have without being noisy. But I do think I'm glad that we're having all of these discussions. I think they're going to have to be ongoing discussions, and I think we've got the right next steps. So I think we need to move on, since we've only got like 10 minutes left and we haven't even started triaging.
Now that I've thoroughly wasted everyone's time.
Well, no, thank you for bringing that up, Jonathan.
Yep, I think we have another
Oh
thing.
yeah, so this is, I was looking at our GitHub permissions. Our GitHub permissions do not match what we have in our owners file. So I've put the current permissions here, and I've got links to what everything means and the proposed permissions.
So real quick on the last subject of the project stuff, it looks like we do have access in the SDK repo to enable that. It's not enabled. Actually, I just enabled it to see if it worked, and it looks like it does work. So if we can leave it enabled, or I can go back and disable it and we can talk about it more. But I just wanted to say, like, yes, we have access to that beta feature, and I've used it in other projects and it seems pretty nice. So up to you guys.
Yep.
I mean, we can give it a shot.
Yeah, leave it enabled. Let's just play with it and not use it for anything official and see what we think.
All right, cool.
Yep. So, Austin, regarding this, would you be creating a PR for modifying the owner's alias file, or where does this live?
So the proposed permissions actually match the owner's alias file that we currently have. The problem is that our existing permissions don't actually match the file. So what I'm proposing is that I will change this in the GitHub settings and just make it all like that.
Yep, that sounds reasonable to me. Any comments or any thoughts by anyone else?
The other thing that basically, like, if you want one of these roles, after we make this change, the way that you get this role is by going through the process to get your name added to the owner alias file. The other thing that we need to talk about is just making sure that each of these role names matches what we think their permission should actually be. It's pretty obvious for admins that they get admin. The approvers could either get maintain or write. But I put maintain. It's just they have access to a little bit more stuff. But even with this, you will still need an admin to cut a release.
I mean, what the like one thing we boiled it down to, you still need an admin for was again?
Locking down the master branch.
Wait, then what does maintainer do over write?
Varsha, there's a link up at the top that shows what each of the GitHub permission, yeah. So basically, maintainers can do like everything that they would need to do that's not dangerous, I think is the official word.
So while releasing, there are only two things for which we need, like a non-community member needs someone else. One is creating a new branch, another is locking down the master. So can we give the locking down of master part, the particular permission for that to everyone? Because so that any community member can make a release. Why do we need that only with the admins?
When you say community member, do you mean maintainer, which I guess is actually approver?
Yeah, at least the approvers.
So basically, I think that in order to change that in GitHub, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that you do need admin. Jonathan, you just cut the release, and I think you were an admin or a maintainer at that point, but you still didn't have permission. Is that correct?
No, I'm only a writer in GitHub terms.
So I wonder if, rather than thinking about it in terms of what our process requires, which is admin, effectively because of the master branch lockdown, is there a different way of thinking about this, which is how can we make it possible to cut a release without that requirement in the first place? Such that like for example, I just cut a controller runtime release last week, and the only permission I need is to push a tag. And that's just write permission. You don't even need maintain permission for that. So like maybe we should think about that way as well.
Well, if we used a release branch instead of doing it straight on master, then we wouldn't need to lock down master. And we could fast forward that branch to master, including the tag.
I thought the whole reason for locking down master was that there was a series of commits that needed to be made.
It's down to one commit now, but the idea is that you don't want any new commits to be made while you're doing that.
As in, like, when you push the one commit, it needs to be immediately after the prior commit that you expect it to be.
Yeah, because the one commit includes like consuming the change logs and stuff.
So really, it sounds like it's kind of two commits that have to be in order. Because otherwise, right, you just push the commit and then push a tag for that commit.
Right, but you could push the commit, or well, you could open the pull request for the release thing. Somebody could then merge a pull request, and then you merge, and then there's a changelog fragment that didn't get used.
Anyway,
But,
I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I feel like that's like the normal release model that seems the easiest in terms of like dealing, A, just make it easy to do, right? And B, like having those minimal permissions is having it structured such that you can release any tag that's already on master at any time. So, and I know we've talked about this a long time. There's reasons we have it set up the way we do, but maybe it's an opportunity to think about that process again and see if we can basically say like at any point we could cut a tag on the existing master and that would become the release. So maybe that means some changes to our changelog generator. Like maybe there's some out of the box thinking we could do related to that so that we could avoid this whole question of giving admin permissions to anybody that wants to be able to cut a release. Because I think that's prohibitive, right? Like there's no way we're going to give admin, it's probably against CNCF rules to give admin to just anyone, maintainers even, right? So we probably need to think about that anyway.
What Istio does is it does its release via doing a pull request to like a file called like trigger publish, where you just update the version number, and then the actual release process is handled by the CI system behind the scenes. So that could be one option to remove the need to manually edit the settings on the GitHub repo, because then it would just be a pull request that someone would approve in either the repo or our release repo.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So maybe we ought to start some kind of a mailing list thread or an issue or something to improve our release process. But to take it back to the GitHub permissions, I don't really have a way of doing this in like a transparent way other than sharing it here. So I'm hoping that we can I can get the authority from the community to make these changes.
Maybe, yeah, I would say let's see if we can do some sort of community review of that. But barring that, the way that Kubernetes does that, right, is they have like some sort of automation that aligns something in a repo with the GitHub permissions. I wonder if we can do something similar there. I wouldn't want to build our own tooling for it, but I wonder if tooling exists already that you just point that tooling at a repo that has a certain structure and it just makes it so.
Cool.
Yep, I'll create a SDK issue so that we can bring this up in the following community meeting or in the triage so that we have enough time to talk about this and discuss various options.
Cool. So in the meantime, I will not make these proposed changes. I will not be here next week, so I will turn it over to one of the other admins to make those changes based on what y'all decide next week.
Is there anything else we would like to discuss about since we are almost like 1 minute away from 12 o'clock? Is there anything else we would like to talk about? We can carry on with the triage during the next meeting. But any other community issue which we would like to bring up? If not, I think that's all we had for today. Thank you so much for joining, and this was really a very good meeting. We discussed a lot of interesting things to make our process better. So thank you so much for joining.
See y'all next time.
Thank you, Varsha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.